You're there to do a job.
I'm not sure how far your analogy takes us.
I always tell people to be like Hit Monkey. Have you seen Hit Monkey?
I've never heard of Hit Monkey. I've not much less seen.
It's that meme where there's a monkey holding someone's head under the water. Like it's on the beach and it looks like he's killing the guy. Right? But the monkey has a very stoic expression on its face, right? And the caption is, Hit Monkey gets no pleasure from its job. Right? So that's what I want our people to be. You know, like cold, not emotional, you know, people drowning killers.
Love.
Where you don't like, you should be able to hurt someone without delighting in it, but you also don't want to like shy away from it. You know? As long as your goal isn't to hurt the person, and you don't like injure them, right? But you should be able to cause someone to suffer to reach that.
The views that are currently being expressed are those of Kevin alone, and they're not necessarily endorsed by.
I mean, jiu-jitsu is a contact sport. Like we're like pretending we're fighting, right? So I'm not gonna.
Are we pretending we're fighting?
I mean, the idea that the potential to get bruised and, you know, maybe slapped in the face accidentally is there.
More dangerous than jiu-jitsu in that regard.
It's part of the game, right? So as long as you're still following the rules, it's fine. And you also need to be able to take it yourself, you know?
You have to what?
If you're causing other people a certain level of discomfort, that is the level of discomfort that you should be willing to put up with without getting butthurt, you know? Like I'm not gonna smash Tyler's face a whole bunch and then get super angry when, you know, he finally someday manages to do it back to me. Ideally. We're all human though. I'm not.
I believe in the words of Jigoro Kano, where we are here to train for each other's mutual benefit.
Did he say that?
Yes, that is the purpose. The purpose of jiu-jitsu and judo, or jiu-jitsu as handed down by Jigoro Kano, was as a means of building character.
Uh-huh. Don't you think suffering builds character?
No.
At all?
In and of itself, no. Like what kind of? I mean, there's
that's the
different
thing.
types
It's
of
not
suffering.
it's not suffering in a box. It's suffering in jiu-jitsu.
All right. What do you want to show today, Kevin?
I wanted to do one concept that keeps bothering me because people don't like this.
All right, hold on. Let me check one thing before you show your concept.
Um,
We got to check our audio too. Sorry, so we can't. There's no point in doing these and then.
That'd be fun. We could mime the whole thing.
You could mine. See what we got.
I already feel trapped in a box. That's not true. Sometimes I feel like a plastic bag, you know, like that Katy Perry song.
I don't know any songs by Katy Perry. Sorry. Matthew Perry.
Who's Matthew Perry? Isn't that the friend?
Maybe. Yeah, he was too. I guess there's two Matthew Perrys.
It was probably more than that. Is the word Perry Mason ending mean anything to you? Like, you know the old lawyer show with Perry Mason?
I never really watched it.
You never watched it? Is it working? They
There's
had
a lot of hiss. There's a lot of hiss. That's very odd. I wonder why there's so much hiss. Got a lot of hiss. Maybe you know what it is? It's probably because this computer is fan is on. See if I can move this at least. Can't unplug that. I can unplug that and then turn it around. Yeah. And let me take it behind it because the microphone won't pick up as much when it's behind.
Do you ever feel like a plastic bag moving through the wind?
Yes. I'll try.
Do you want to put it on the floor? We don't have to see.
No, well,
You can put it next to it.
I'm just making sure this will reach. Hopefully that'll remove that hiss. Hopefully it'll stop hissing so much. All right, sorry about that. Hopefully that works. I don't know. What do you want to show?
So I wanted to show like how to really connect to someone's arm and make sure that you can control the elbow from an armbar position, right? So one thing that's commonly stated in Jiu-Jitsu is to pinch your knees, right? The idea being it's a lot easier to bend a pipe if you put it in a vise compared to if you're just trying to bend it in the air, right? It's a reference point. I can use my legs to control his shoulder and keep it from wiggling around, and it just gives me a tighter armbar. But one thing that I've noticed, or something that I do, is instead of focusing on like just using my legs to pinch here, right, like a pair of chopsticks, it's not that great here. But what I want to do is I want to use my legs to reinforce my arms, right? Big thing, right? Because in order to allow my bones to structurally kind of keep control over this, his elbow and arm here, what I want to do is as soon as I get this Kimura locked up and I sit, I'm going to pinch my knees in so that my elbows are connected to my legs here, right? So instead of being here, if he decides to really pull his arm, or he's like really strong, he's going to be able to rip through this, right? Pretty easy, right? But once I pinch in my knees here, right, what happens is my forearm bones, what are they, radial ulna, right, are now connected in here, and I call it like the pin on a grenade, right? It keeps this locked into the rest of me here. If I pull this out, I now have no control over his arm. He can move it in, he can move it out, he can do whatever he wants, right? Bad for me. All right, so I want to think about, like, once I get this locked in, my knees come in and I'm actively setting my elbows on my legs here. All right, at the same time, my hand helps pull down. So like, if my forearm's like the middle of a seesaw, right, I'm pushing down on one end so that this elbow raises up on the other side, right? Because again, for an armbar, I need to make sure that he can't pull his elbow to the floor, right? So if he wants to pull it down, that means I need to figure out how to pull it up, and that's what this allows me to do. It allows me to pull this elbow up to the ceiling, right? So I want to pull it nice and tight, and then set my legs underneath here, right? And I can either keep my Kimura grip and have like one elbow here, nice and tight chest, right? Or I can reach across here, and this is pretty good. I usually end up falling towards the head side when I do this, right? If I'm gonna cut the hip here, right? So you don't want your elbow to be able to fall through this space, right? If my knee is outside of my elbow, even if I have a Kimura grip, if he just turns here and gets his elbow down, he'll be able to. Yeah, right? And that hurts a lot, right? So I want to get this arm as deep as I can, right? If I'm just like gently cupping my thigh with my hand, my wrist is involved, he's going to be able to break through it, right? Even if I have a Kimura grip, right? If my wrist is the thing engaged with his arm, he's just going to, right? You're going to roll with one roided out guy, and it's going to be not fun for you and your forearms, right? So instead, what I want to think about is I want the fattest part of my arm through here, right? And then once I eliminate all the space between my bicep and his arm, then I'm going to pull this up and make sure my legs are underneath my elbows here, right? And this allows me to really engage my whole body to this arm here, right? I want to be like fully attached, right? Where I can like hang off of it as much as I can. I can put in a lot of pressure just holding onto this, which makes a person think about, oh, I might need to tap. Like, I need to hold onto this arm. Instead of, thinking about any other sort of idea to escape that they can come up with, right? So we want to be super connected, right? Everything reinforced with everything else. My legs are reinforcing my arms, my chest is reinforcing my Kimura, like as little space as I can manage here, right? Yeah, so when we're doing things like spinning arm bars, right, what I look for is as I make my transition, right, I step and my hand is already looking to cup my leg here, right? So it's already super strong, right? That way it's gonna be locked in when I sit. You know, I've got this super deep here, right? And I know at least I'm gonna hold on to it, right? Until I can make my grip adjustment here. Right, usually I'll start throwing this leg over. Right. But, yeah, this elbow thing, I think is the most important.
You want to show that from a couple different angles, that little switch that you're doing?
Oh, this side's weird. Squish. So I'm catching right in my hand here. And that'll help pull up that elbow. I can switch here, lean towards the head, so now I can get this up. And I can either come back to a neutral, or generally I'll tend to hang off this arm here. Right, where this is completely locked in, and I'm trying to pull his arms away from his ribs where he's going to be less strong. And I can just walk myself up to this arm and start breaking it down.
Probably should switch this way too.
I don't know if you had your back to the camera, I think.
The camera's a little bit high, so we gotta make sure.
Which way? Maybe we should do like this way. Maybe. I don't know. We'll do a couple different ones. Whichever side you want, it doesn't matter. But
Squish. Right,
see how we're facing that way now, right?
Perfect. We're gonna do that side now. Right, but I'm making sure as I step through that my leg finds my hand here. All right, so
Go this way.
let's go. Can we go head towards this way?
We just did that and we wound up facing that way. That's why I'm trying to turn this way and hoping that we'll wind up. Yeah, we just go around in a circle. See, now you're facing the camera. That's good.
Perfect.
All right, so that worked. Take 3.
We just did this one.
Yeah, that's fine. But so now, you know, talk about your thing.
And then one more rotation.
You want to do it that way? You
Yeah,
can go from that side.
I want to show the leg connection.
The rainbow connection.
The leg connection. I don't know what a rainbow connection is. All right, so I'm finding my hand.
All right, so now you're back to the camera. You should go the other. You should go start this side on my break. So turn the body over here. I think this will line up going to the right space. I think.
All right, and then from here, if you want, you can start searching for this. Sorry, this hip, right, to keep him from hitchhikers escaping. Hitchhiker escape, right? Or what I like to do is follow this side, get this leg over, and then play. I prefer this more. So yeah, like the idea of using your bones, especially like your legs, to support your arms in whatever endeavor, you know, is happening for them. You know, my arms are weak inherently, and sometimes with Kimuras, you know, you're going to be Kimuring someone who's a lot stronger than you, and you can't just rely on your upper body strength. You got to figure out how to connect your legs to help support everything. This also shows up in our half guard Kimura here. It's a good angle. Right? So I get my Kimura here, right? And my goal is usually to get this foot on the hip, right? Not only does it allow me to keep track of his hip and gives me a little bit of distance control, but look, my leg here is now supporting my arm, right? So I can pinch down and use that. Now I feel a whole lot stronger than I actually am just because I have this leg helping out my arm here, right? I don't get that if I'm just doing this Kimura from half guard here. This Kimura is inherently more dangerous because now he's going to be able to manipulate my arm a whole lot better and easier because it's not supported by anything. All right, so Kimura is always characterized as a strong person's game, right? And for, you know, places like this, it is. You know, it's right now it's like, can I dominate your shoulder and control your elbow more than you, and we pretty much have the same resources here, right? But if you're able to get your legs involved, right, now it's a different game, right? Where this is something that I can do on a person a lot stronger than me and feel comfortable that I'm not gonna get my own arms ripped out in the process, right? So here, allowing you to like pinch in, and your legs and hips are now involved. Where else does that happen? Try to think. I'm not sure. Another transition? Can I borrow you?
From where?
Bottom side. Alright, so let's say instead of stepping around and spinning here, right, a lot of the time instead, I'll just come up and grab this Kimura here. Right, the same thing, if I do decide to sit back on the armbar, right, what I want to do is, as I sit, once my butt hits the floor, I'm trying to pull my elbows back and locking everything into my hips here, right, and I can put in a great deal of pressure, and I'm not afraid of him pulling his arm back to safety here, right, and I can get it locked in so I'm not afraid of him pulling his elbow to the floor either. Right, but if I'm just chilling here, yeah, he's out. So it's gonna be problematic. You gotta pull that elbow up, get everything tight, and get everything like really focused in on this one small part of his arm, so he's not able to control that. Right, and then from here, this is a good place where we can start making our adjustments.
Here we go. We should start this way.
This way. Which way?
So that they can see. I think you still have your back on the camera a lot there.
Get the Kimura here. Alright. Pulling and getting my elbows back. That was a bad arm bar. I kind of just threw it. We've been working on this. Pulling this elbow back, and then cross facing here and having good pressure. So I can step over, get this Kimura here, right? If you want, right, because sitting back on the armbar without having the leg over is inherently going to open up the opportunity for the person on bottom to hitchhiker escape. One thing that you might be wise to do is throw this leg over in the beginning, right? So I need to be able to base out with my arm, so I can't throw this leg over easily if I have the Kimura here, right? So I'm gonna lean and then throw this leg over, and once I have the leg across, now I can lean towards that direction and sit on the arm, right? So I got the grenade pin in, right? From here, this elbow, right? Once I'm in this armbar position, this elbow becomes something that I also pay attention to. What I don't want is for him to start being able to dig underneath my arm here, right? Or my leg. He'll be able to create space, he starts hiding his arms, he gets really annoying really fast, right? So if we're here and I'm not already dominating this inside armpit space with my leg, right? That's what I'm looking to do here, right? I'm gonna hook my hip and I'm gonna drag his elbow up towards the top of his head. And if he wants to not get armbarred, he's gonna keep his far arm engaged and protecting his near side arm, right? So even if he's like trying to keep his elbows down, I'm able to use my feet to engage with the floor and push my whole body up and into this space. And now, once his elbows are away from his body here, I can bring my leg up and start digging out the arm. Okay, so you can set up whatever defense you want. I like it when people do the rear naked choke defense, right? Because what happens is when I plant my leg and start pushing down, right, we're able to create a lot of pressure on this elbow here, right? And usually they'll allow me to slip that on. If they're really strong and they hold on and I'm not able to create that space, then I'll use this leg to start stripping it through. Oh, bonus. Alright, another thing that I want to emphasize is like how to control and keep weight on a person here. Right? There's a tendency to sit back and be on the knees. Right? I only do this in order to lock up the Kimura grip here. Right? I'll keep good pressure, and then when I want to make this arm exchange, I back up so that I can move my arms around. Oh, sorry. Right? Once I get this Kimura though, I go back to leaning forward. Right? And I'm trying to lift my legs and my feet off the floor. Right? I'm leaning into his ribs, my chest crushes his arm crushes into my forearm there, and that goes right into the ribs. Right? So even though my knees are touching, what I want is for there to be no weight, like they're not carrying me. I want his, 2 of these ribs in his torso holding my body weight up. All right, so I'm gonna lean in here. And now I can bring my legs over to make transitions into arm bars, or what I wanted to do, I hope you don't mind. We're leaning here. I can,
No, you try and do it.
We got this head scissors.
I remember those.
So
I've been in those a few times.
yeah.
Those are nasty.
And then there's like triangles you can do there. Whole bunch of stuff.
Don't sleep on the head scissors. Don't sleep
Oh,
on head scissors.
yeah.
That is the.
Yeah, you'll go out if you're not careful.
You will go to sleep on the head scissors.
A lot of people have a tendency, they think like, oh, my arm's not in there. I don't have to worry about it. That happens with the armless triangle too.
I've been there.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're dealing with somebody who's strong enough and determined enough and has and any sort of understanding of like just kind of how to make an angle,
Yeah.
if you're complacent,
Yeah.
you will pay the price. I think if you've trained enough, you probably, there's a point where you think with all these kind of techniques, like that's garbage.
Yeah.
But you will
You still need to take it seriously.
you like like a Kasakatame,
Yeah,
or
that's happened to me as well.
there are some guys that are legit on the Kasakatame, and if they get you in that,
Yeah.
especially if they don't know anything else, like that's their jam,
Yeah.
and then they just are gonna hold you there, and big strong dude,
Yep.
you will pay a price.
Yeah,
Don't sleep on, don't leave your head.
That exact thing happened to me. Like I was in my prime of talking crap about Casey Gatami, and I rolled with my buddy Emilio, and I hadn't seen him for a couple months, and he put me in the case, and I was like,
This is garbage.
And he just immediately put my arm into that leg Americana, and I just start hearing ripping in my elbow. And I was like, oh man, like.
And then you don't want to tap because
Yeah,
you've
'cause
already
it's
talked trash to
talked
yourself,
crap.
right? Like you're like,
Yeah.
it's not even, you don't have to say anything to the person, but if you said something,
Yeah.
you're like, what is this bullshit? And then you're like, oh, now I can't tap because I just talked trash about it.
You talk trash.
Internally.
Yeah, and I've seen that happen with like chokes in the guard. We tell everyone if collar chokes aren't supposed to work in the guard because you're extending your own arms for an arm bar, but if they don't do the arm bar, there's really they can
You
stop
can't sit there and not do anything.
It's
and
not
expect-
gonna just not work automatically. You got to do stuff.
Or
to
even
make it
like we
work.
talked about this before with the inside Ezekiel, the inside the closed guard Ezekiel, which is one of those things that everyone scoffs at. It says that's the dumbest thing ever, and I try to tell certain kids who will remain nameless, or the punch chokes.
Yeah.
If you just sit there and don't do it, or you wait,
Or you wait too
and you
long.
think like, oh, I'll do this, but if the guy has
Yeah.
some determination and a few pounds on you, then you are going to pay the price, and you'll feel foolish at the end of it.
Yeah, if they believe they can do it, that's powerful.
The best guy is what's his name? The guy who would do the baseball
From bottom.
Majid Haj.
Yeah.
And he would do
So-
baseball chokes from back control. Like he'd give up
From back.
from back.
That's funny.
He had them from everywhere.
Just like let a person.
And you remember there was like 5 minutes back in like 10 years ago or whatever
Yeah.
where he tapped out a bunch of guys, good guys. Then he tapped out. He catch Clark Gracie or something. He caught a couple of big name guys.
Really?
And he's good. It's not, I'm not saying like, oh, he's just a gimmick or whatever, but that was a gimmick for a while. And then of course after you saw he tapped out like 3 or 4 really good guys and maybe won a few championships or something, or tournaments. Everybody
Started figuring it out.
no, not just figured it out, but then everybody started doing it.
Yeah.
There's still guys today who are still trying to do that move,
Yeah.
like all the time, like that's, and failing 99% of the time. But if you sleep on that guy, that 1%, you will catch him.
Yeah.
You
I think every gym has that guy where they'll either put you to sleep, bottom out with an Ezekiel, or they're gonna lose by like 1 billion points.
But they're worth it. They're like, I'm gonna swing for the fences.
Yeah, and like, those 30% of the time where it works perfectly,
Every time.
and then, the other times it's just a train wreck. But yeah, you gotta take things
The
seriously.
thing I think, just to reinforce, like everything that you're doing right now, is that there's a tendency, especially amongst maybe lesser experienced, not necessarily lesser skilled people, but lesser experienced people, where they'll get on an arm and they'll rush to finish the arm lock.
Yeah.
They're going to do it as like a speed move. They get into a good position, maybe they're just like surprised, or they just think like, I have to go as fast as possible.
Yeah.
And that, look, it's going to yield some results once, not depending on who you're rolling with, but I would much rather have you go really hard, like fast on an arm lock,
Yeah.
than for you to go slow and like suck out all the oxygen in the space. It's one of those things where if you put in the work in the beginning, then the end will be relatively easy.
Yeah.
If you don't put the work in at the beginning, the end will be hard. And so, if you spin really fast and you don't have full control of the arm and the head and the shoulders or yourself,
Yeah.
and then when you sit back and there's all that space and your arm's in the right place, then there's going to be the other guy on the bottom who's going to feel like he can try at least to explode out of the position.
Yeah.
Or come up, right? There's so much momentum when you are falling back. Whereas the way you're doing it, you're like you're laying all the groundwork before you even sit back or before you even try. So it's so tight, it's so heavy. There's no momentum. I don't feel like I can like explode out. There's nowhere to really explode. So I think, if you had 30 seconds to finish, it'll feel like I have to go really fast, but you may lose everything in that.
Yeah.
In that 30 seconds. Whereas if you just say, okay, it's going to take me 5 to 10 seconds to really solidify this position, and then when I sit back, there's going to be tremendous pressure. I'm not losing the position. And then when you can combine those two things, right, where maybe you take your time in the beginning, and then you learn how to like solidify things, but quickly.
Yes.
You don't have to be slow,
But you
right?
need a process. You need to have like a checklist of things that or not even necessarily a checklist. Like a lot of the times for me, it's like, what do I need to maintain this position? And it's usually like, I need to control the elbow. I need to keep like a spot where I can keep pressure. And then like, if I have what I want, I need to make sure that when I move, I keep those things, right? So I'm not gonna move in a way that forces me to lose that elbow or picks my hips up into the air and creates a lot of space. Like if doing that move will cause me to lose the elbow, I don't do that move. I would rather sit there and stay where I am with control of the elbow and wait for them to create an opportunity for me than try and move in a way that's gonna lose what I want.
And I think this is something that is like in every position. I know I've rolled with people, I'm sure you have too, where it could be from the bottom. You could be in someone's guard where you don't feel like you can move around safely.
Yeah.
They have so much control over it. And this is one of the things, like I watch a ton of videos, right? And you can watch all these techniques and these guys who show you the techniques. And then you go to the mat and you try to execute these things and they fall apart very quickly. Because, they don't show you, or they don't always emphasize, some do better than others, they don't always emphasize all the things that all the ingredients that go into getting to that and controlling that technique from start to finish. It's like, how do I just control somebody in the guard to the point that they don't feel comfortable moving around. They're frozen like a deer in the headlights,
Yeah.
right? On the bottom, that's how you want to,
you want the person to feel like when you're doing this, you want the person to feel like, I don't want to move. You know, there's so much pressure coming down, it's hard to move, but then any little daylight I see is just another
it's a
problem,
false opportunity.
right? It's like, so take your time.
Yeah.
You know, it would be the takeaway, and really think about how do you control that position. It doesn't mean you have to shut off every avenue of movement. It just means you have to be ready to deal with every avenue of movement, right?
Yeah, it's complicated. I don't know, because you have to find something that is comfortable for you, and also where like you can put yourself in a place where you can think about which movement will be best, right? So I had a tendency to kind of hang around specific spots just because I was able to stay there and like think.
Yeah.
You know, that's why I really like that armbar position, because I can, you know, be there and I can watch what's going on and, you know, kind of monitor everything and make adjustments from there.
But when you're on top, right? Like if you're cross-sided, right? Like you're here, so a lot of times people are jumping over. Like I can kind of defend for a little while, right? But when you're up here, like move around a little bit, right? You're like, so there's a lot of pressure here, you're moving, so like I don't feel like I can really get out. You know what I mean? You're blocking every avenue. And now you're just able to hunt. You know what I mean? And so if you're able to get on an arm, like so go ahead and get on the arm, like the way you were doing. Yeah, so like you like dig that in. Now I can defend a little bit, but you're not going, like I'm not going anywhere. You know what I mean? So there, you got that kind of cross, I guess this is like a reverse power half.
It's like a Kesa kind of
Kesa, right? So here, you know, you're here. Now you're gonna work over, my arm's in trouble, I can kind of hold on to you a little bit, but I'm not, you know, like I'm just resisting, and now you're gonna switch off to the other arm. You know what I mean? You're under control the whole time, as opposed to jumping all over the place.
chaos. Yeah.
Which I think is a good way to, you know, like calm, like take your time, don't get excited, don't switch off too quickly to something else that's gonna create a scramble.
Yeah, it's important to have a sense of what is important to have, I guess, and that comes with experience. Where like, you know, if I had that underhook, you know, if I have this underhook, I'm going to do my best to keep the underhook unless something so bad happens that you're doing that I need to reprioritize something else.
Or something, like I do something
Another
foolish,
better opportunity.
right? Yeah.
But it's I don't know, what I guess if I have this and you suddenly like give me a neck and I feel like I can grab that and that's gonna be a better opportunity. But you know.
But let's go back for a second, right? If you sit here, get the underhook and like pull it up, and now defend it, right? I'm not giving it to you. You could just give, like, some people would just give this up, right? Or they just keep tugging.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they're just gonna like, oh, I'm gonna yank it, you know? And then it gets easy for me to pull it out, and then I'm gonna get out, right? Like it's because you're pulling so hard, or you're moving around, or you're trying to do something.
Yeah.
Whereas you can just kind of put pressure down, right?
I don't have to force it.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. But like at the same time, if you're here and I have this underhook and you start getting like your legs back in between, right? Then this is not something that I want to have.
Yeah, that's not
you know,
helpful.
I need to get out, and then I can
So
start.
you're not
checking.
gonna, I mean, that's,
I mean, sometimes people hold on to things that are just going to get them into trouble.
yeah,
Just
unforced
because-
errors.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been there. I do that.
Or like sometimes you have to deal with a different problem, and you just, you know, you have something good like an underhook, and you know it's just not the thing that you need to worry about right now. So you know you might have to abandon it.
But I like that. I like just the idea of like what you're doing is you're kind of preloading everything before you sit back, right? I mean, that's always the pitfall that, not always, but often the pitfall that people suffer is that they go back too fast without actually. You're talking about connection, right? Like you are establishing a connection. It's not just the underhook. You know, you're connecting in a couple different places, and you're maintaining that connection very powerfully through the whole technique. It's not like you know, you get the old, like the way I originally learned how to do an arm lock, where you maybe had the grenade pin, but then there was always the struggle to go to the wrist
Yeah.
and find the wrist and pull it back in time, you know? And so you almost have to like let go. Remember, I mean, that's,
Yeah, I mean, that's a problem.
and then there were all these like crazy grip breaks that you would learn how to do.
Yeah.
To, you know, every different grip had a different grip break. And depending on whether you're wearing a gi or no gi, or how big their arms were, how fat their forearms were, some of these things would or wouldn't work, and you couldn't get them to get done, you know, and then it's just so complicated.
Yeah.
And in the midst of that, the guy's freaking out, and you are like, I'm just holding on. I'm not even thinking about taking the arm at this
Yeah.
point. And it just is like a chaotic scene.
I think that was what drew me to the Kimura, because like no matter what, it was it was the same answer to a lot of different problems, right? I didn't have to worry about a whole bunch of grip breaks. Like my goal was just, I'm gonna hold on to this arm, and I'm gonna make it as uncomfortable for you as possible, and hopefully you'll give me the arm. And then if they didn't, I could start digging it out, or you know, move on.
Using your legs, but you have such a good, so that's the other thing, right? You can start using, if you don't have such a good grip and such a strong connection, when you start using your legs, things start falling apart. So if you have a good connection with your arms and your upper body, and your hips are already in nice and tight, when you start using your legs, it's not like a big window for the other person to start, they're gonna start filling up that space, right? So, I mean, I remember, you know, you get in here and you'd be like this and you'd start kicking, but then your leg's coming off their face, and so then they're just gonna stack you, right?
Yeah.
Or they get underneath it or whatever. So I think that's good stuff.
Yeah.
Good
I think
stuff.
If you can make your entire body work towards the same goal, everything's gonna be a lot easier, I think. One other thought, like as far as, like I was thinking, you know, this underhook, like having something in this space in between his arm and his body is really, really valuable to me, right? So if I ever get this, like I'm going to, no matter what I do, I'm gonna always make sure that I have something in between his arm and his body, right? So even if I transition into this north-south, right, I'm never gonna take out this arm and then try and put this in, right? Or, you know, if I'm gonna step over with something, I'm gonna make sure that I have something already there before I take the other thing out, right? So that's like something that I keep track of. If I have some sort of start of an isolation, you know, that's something you can work towards, where either, like, will this move help further isolate the arm away from their body, or will it help keep them from getting their arms back? And that's just another valuable thing, I think. Getting something in between the elbow.
Always.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the, you know, getting your elbows away from getting the person's elbows away from their body is always going to make them weaker.
Yeah.
And it's going to increase your, I mean, I think that's a big part of all of jiu-jitsu is every finish. I'm trying to think of finishes that don't require the elbows to be up high. I mean,
Leg locks.
well, I guess leg lock's true. But then there's things that you're doing to the legs that are very similar to what you're doing to the elbows in terms of isolating, right? So it's like your elbow line. If you were going to talk about arm locks, you need to talk about the elbow line instead of the knee line, right?
Yeah.
Which is what you're doing. You're talking about elevating the elbow line up to a certain point on your midsection, right? And creating this great angle. And Kimura's, I'm thinking the same way, right? The more you can get that elbow flared up, the easier it's going to be. So I think it's a very similar concept, not the same concept, but in terms of like controlling the knee line, right? You can't really do much leg lock wise unless you control the person's knee,
Yeah.
right? So it's a similar thing, if not the same. Cool. Anyway,
Thank you.
thank you, Captain Kevin. I hope that fixes everyone's arm bars. Everyone should be finishing arm locks.
Hopefully.
If you get one, it's a
Yeah.
precious thing. You should nourish
Attach
it.
and make them suffer. Just hold on to it.
Oh, thanks, guys. Have a good weekend. Well, that hiss went away.